was one of my science buddies spotted me and yelled down the concourse and said, "Mo, I heard you went back down to arts."
Back down to arts.
Yeah. And I just thought, there it is now. That's it, right? That's the bias in the world we live in. But it proves to me that I've made the right decision for me, because I'm really happy to be back down in arts.
This week on Garry Talks Film, I am delighted to be joined by Moe Honan, filmmaker and founder of Moetion Films. Moe has carved out a distinctive career, telling powerful stories across film and television, with work that blends craft, empathy and purpose. In this conversation, we talk about her journey through the industry, building a creative business, and what it really takes to sustain a career in the animation industry.
Something I learned about when I was a teenager in the old Abbey, actually, in Anna Sinclair. Those arts and crafts people and stonemasons and all those artists of the time, they would always leave a piece that was asymmetrical or imperfect. The thinking was you couldn't make something perfect, because to do so would be trying to be a higher thing than a human. Is it the imperfection of humanity? Is it the imperfection or the crack in something that is going to be what we still want? Because we can't be perfect.
This is a GK Media podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of Garry Talks Film, brought to you by Grace on Demand, Skillnet and the Rap Commission. I'm delighted to have Moe Honan, director, founder, CEO of Moetion Films, joining us in studio today. Mo, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Garry. Lovely to be here.
I'm delighted you could come because I know how busy you are, and I really, really do appreciate you taking the time to come in and have a chat with me today.
Pleasure.
I'm fascinated by your career, and I think one of the things that really is interesting is how you fell into becoming a producer. You didn't go to college and say, okay, I want to be a producer. You studied, was it arts and literature in NUIG? So when you finished up in school in Clare, I presume, and you were heading into, you did the leaving, and then you decided to go to NUIG and just, it's Galway, it's a big city. It was a vibrant city, easier to live in back then anyways, financially. What were you looking to do with yourself back then?
I think at the time, I just wanted to go to university, to be honest. I wanted to leave school and I perceived university as freedom. So that was the first reason. I also always had a keen interest in the arts and literature and drama and storytelling, I guess. That was the beginning of that process. But I actually started studying science first.
Okay.
Because I also have quite an interest in scientific stuff in general. But that didn't work for me. I was reading my sister's books and her friends' books and listening to them talking about their courses when I started college first, and she was studying history and English lit. And I just knew after a while, this isn't going to work for me. So I made a deal with my parents that I would finish the year and do the exams. And if I still felt like that after the year, would they be okay with me changing? And one of the things that happened to me after that was I came back to college. They were fine, by the way. Great people.
What kind of background did they have career-wise?
I think, my mother was a housekeeper and mother at home, which would have been just more typical of her generation, I guess. My father worked in various aspects. He worked as a mediator in between unions and management.
Okay.
And in personnel.
That's where you got your producer skills from as well.
Maybe, but we didn't really conceive it that way at the time. But we all, as general in the family, we would have had an interest in the arts, I guess.
Okay.
And history and literature. So I decided I would change track. And one of the things that happened to me when I walked down the concourse in university in Galway, that following September, October, when we came back, was one of my science buddies that I had met in first year spotted me and yelled down the concourse and said, "Mo, I heard you went back down to arts."
Back down to arts.
Yeah. And I just thought, there it is now. That's it, right? That's the bias in the world we live in. But it proves to me that I've made the right decision for me, because I'm really happy to be back down in arts, right? I kind of realised then that was my path. So I studied languages as well, brought me abroad, lived abroad for a couple of years, but always came back to Galway. I loved Galway from the day I came here. And I think a lot of people have that experience, it's just such a great place to live.
So did you feel like a rebel outsider? When someone says, "Oh, have you gone back down to Earth?" You're like, "Okay, I'm going to take this on." Like, did you want to prove something?
I think it had to do with expression, yes. Because, I think I quickly realized, even though I was fascinated by my science subjects, that my opinion or my own personal experience of something wasn't really relevant. At least that's the way I perceived it. And that really, if I just kept studying information, I could pass my exams.
Yeah.
But it wasn't going to lead me to any kind of sense of fulfillment. And maybe that was a kind of a luxurious way to be thinking, especially in a time where unemployment was very high, and I knew that my choice was going to mean I would struggle to get work when I graduated. So it was, I guess, a slightly more rebellious path, you could argue, at the time. But I knew, I suppose, just internally, I kind of wanted to be at peace and to be a bit happy about life.
Yeah.
So kind of followed my heart in that sense. And I was very happy studying my art subjects after that. And I did really well.
So the 20s must have been fun, doing arts in NUIG, going to, was it Vienna, Germany? Where in Germany did you go?
I was in Freiburg for about a year. And then I started a master's in drama, theatre studies of the German stage and German writing.
Oh, wow.
And that brought me to Vienna. I spent a year there and I loved it. But I kind of had to start learning Viennese German, which surprised me when I got there. But it was a very exotic place to be suddenly. It had that whole history of the Czech Republic, which it had become, and the Hungarian Empire, and it had all those influences in the language, in the arts. I mean, you can't walk down a street in Vienna without bumping into amazing art or amazing music, So it was very stimulating in that sense to be in that kind of an environment and still learning about things.
Yeah.
But again, I came back to Galway.
Yeah. But I think it's a great period in our life. Like, I remember my 20s very much exploring and visiting different cities.
Yeah.
After studying film and television, because you're just trying to figure, because in college you're put through, we'll say, a system. In school, that is. And then you do college and you get to actually maybe pick something that you like, fall in love with it, then explore it further and so on. Nearly kind of building up your purpose and you're finding out your personality, and then coming back to the world and saying, okay, I'm ready now to actually, I know what I want to say in this world. I'm ready to start actually working and executing.
Yeah, for sure. And, I had a kind of slight turn. I think I would have kept studying or kept traveling for another while, but my father passed away actually during that time very suddenly. And that had a very kind of sudden impact on my thinking, and just in a very pragmatic way. It was like, well, you need to start working now, actually, not next year, or not the year after. You need to focus now and start getting some income and being more independent, So that was kind of the way I was going anyway. I always wanted that and financial independence in my life, but it probably just accelerated that for me at the time, and for my sister as well. That was just a kind of bombshell, I guess, that went off in our lives.
And was that one of the first big experiences of grief then that you would have had?
Absolutely. I mean, I would have remembered grandparents passing away as a child. And that was always very sad, of course. You can be very fond and close to them, and you also realize how much it affects your parent as a child. You can see that. So that's kind of your first learning of that.
Yeah.
But like Dad died prematurely, suddenly. And it was, quite an impact, I would say. When you're that age as well, you're just coping with it, I guess, and you're not fully formed, like you're not fully taken in the kind of heavy consequences of life at that age, which is probably just as well, because you're still in that kind of accelerating mode of trying to grow and become independent. But it did, it took a lot out of us. Let's say it was more shock, I think, that you're dealing with first. And then the grief after that, I suppose, plays out over time. But you go on, and our father wanted us to be successful. So both myself and my sister would have been quite independent thinkers and say, come on, just do what you need to do what you want to do as much as you can and keep going. Yeah.
Because it's funny, I was doing some research there the last day, and I saw that you working with Justin McCarthy.
Yeah.
And I've known Justin over the years, and he would have worked on a documentary I'd say I did 20 years ago. And it's funny, like if you look back on the west of Ireland, and the productions that have happened, you can see Justin popping up every so often around. And I only saw him on the prom the last day, and you wouldn't, if you didn't know the guy, you wouldn't know actually how he has been the backbone of a lot of productions that took place over the years from the west of Ireland.
Absolutely. And at that point, when I met Justin, I should just mention quickly, I studied media in between because it was a passion of mine after I left college. So that's kind of how I got into working in media.
And where was that?
I studied, I did a course out as was, I don't even know what it was called at this stage.
At Clonmara?
GMIT. Yeah.
Was it just a 1-year course?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was also learning on the ground because I was meeting people I was helping who were working with others working in the media. It was kind of beginning to grow here in the West.
Yeah, because it was a great time. There wasn't that many working here.
Correct.
So everyone who started doing these courses actually ended up working in the industry.
And just kind of experimenting, and, you'd get a chance to just assist or be a runner, or you were just learning on the job, really. But one of my first real media jobs, if I can call it that, was on radio. I started working in radio.
Yeah, you worked where I used to work.
Yes, in Galway Bay FM. And I did work with Joe Woods, who has passed away since.
Yeah.
And Joe gave me a chance, like researching stories, and then brought me in front of the mic and got a bit of training there. But I loved audio then. I loved the sound of voices. Which brought me on to something else I do a lot, which is voice directing. And I've kept doing that for years, and I love it. Love working with actors and I just did a few days actually there.
There's so many skills you learn from radio, isn't there?
Yeah, and it's just so, especially with animation, of course, and not everybody knows that, so I'm just going to say it. It's the first thing, after maybe the script and some initial drawings. It's your play. It's what you create to make. It's your shoot in a funny way.
Yeah.
And it needs to be acted in such a way that gives the animators everything that will inspire them to animate credibly with the right body acting and the right body language and the right expression.
So I was asking this before, do you pick the voice artist before the animation, or is it animation and then the voice artist comes in?
No, so when it's original, off script with maybe some storyboarding done, and it's before animation. So you're casting the role, finding the right voice, finding the right character, developing the character voice, and then you record all the parts in the play, and it's edited, goes into an animatic storyboard, is edited until it works into whatever the length of the movie is. And that all happens prior to animation. There's another process that people do, which is dubbing, which you understand, obviously, which is after.
Yeah.
And that may be because you've made your film in another language. So you might be dubbing from German to English, or from Norwegian to English, or from Irish to English, whatever. And that will be done after the fact. But that means there was an original voice actor there to begin with, and you're dubbing over it.
But if someone says, I went to the shop, you directing them, are you getting them to say that in 12 different ways to see what way it works then when it's assembled in the animation?
Well, you have the information obviously in the scene, in the script.
Yeah.
So you have to try and get the actor to understand where they are, who they're talking to, what time of day it is, what mood it is, how they're projecting their voice. Are they right beside each other like we are? Are they just over there?
It's so different from live action where the whole setup is done unless it's green screen.
Correct. So you have actually much more to build in the understanding of how the line is said, emotionally, of course, as well, before you record it. And then you record it, yes, a few different times just to see what's feeling right. And you might even have 2 or 3 that you think could work and say, okay, we keep those 3.
And do you close your eyes then when they're doing it and to actually visualize it in your head?
I do, actually. Yeah. And I was working on a film for another Irish producer in animation just the last couple of days. And I found myself doing that all the time because we actually have the animatic with guide tracks in there. And now we're doing the master tracks, the real voices. So it's not animated yet, but we're consulting the animatic because we can see the composition of the shot. We can see roughly, where the character is standing, which all gives us a sense of timing and a sense of information. But I often find myself looking away from it.
Okay.
Once I understand it, but just looking away, because if I can feel it and feel that it's right, that's for me more convincing than if I just keep watching something technically. Yeah.
You have your voice artists coming in at the start. Do they come in again months later?
They do. They come in at the end of the animation when it's absolutely frame locked. You may still be doing other parts, like you might be doing grading or colouring, or you might still have some compositing to do, but we like to get it a little bit of compositing in so we can see as much sync as possible. But it is frame locked. And that's very important that it is, because even a frame out
they can't extend
can throw
anything.
the sync.
Yeah.
No.
And what should they do then when they come in?
They do the process of ADR, like you would in live action, where we see, okay, that bit's missing, or we need more on that. We need more projection on that, or we're often also adding in crowds. If there's a crowd scene, or sometimes we do have to change a line because somewhere in the process of the animation, something hasn't quite worked, or we can see that it's wrong. And at that point, you have to pull on other skills because you're rewriting a little, or you're having to keep the intention of the line, but, create something that is going to match the sync as well. So there's another area you have to go into there. It's more technical.
There's a huge amount. Because from the composite and the even from just sketching out with storyboards and doing the voice artists, then you're into the heavy animation, and then you're actually trying to just tidy it up to get the voice artists in for ADR, and then kind of complete it. And it's
like after the ADR, and people often ask me, what does ADR stand for? It's additional dialogue replacement.
Yes.
Or some people say additional dialogue recording.
Okay.
Either will do, but it means that you're doing it after picture lock, basically, so that you can sync. But there's all the post-production that you would with a normal film has to happen as well. All the music, all the sound effects. And again, in animation, you only have your dialogue. You don't have your room, your atmosphere, your footsteps, your clothes, your textures.
To build everything.
Everything. So the sound design actually in animation is massive.
Niko and the Magic Reindeer was a Christmas movie animation feature that you brought out, we said Christmas 12 months ago.
Yeah.
And that did really, really well in the box office. I don't know if you want to talk about figures, but because sometimes we'll say Screen Ireland will say, oh, such an Irish film has done really well or whatever. And I saw online how well Magic Reindeer had done. And I was like, why aren't people singing about this? Like, this is a great success. And this is a company from the west of Ireland that has been heavily involved in it, and Emer Noon and Craig was involved in the music for it and everything like that.
Brilliant, yeah.
How long did it take from, let's say, getting going, because I know it can take a while to get funded in place and all that, from actually kicking off pre-production to getting it then in the cinema?
With that particular one, from memory, I think it was about 4 years.
Wow.
And that's actually the third of the Niko films we've been involved in with our co-producing partners. So that's about as fast as you can do it, I think.
Well, that's fast.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because you're developing, right? So there is a development phase that takes quite some time. Even with something like that we knew, we knew the universe, we knew the characters. Of course, there were new characters, but we still have to work with the writers, which is something we do a lot of in motion films, and really take care on the storytelling there. So that part of development, plus our partners or us doing visual development as well, that can all take, just the work of that can take at least 2 years. And at some point in there, you're building finance as well.
Yeah.
But before you complete finance and then get your co-production structure together, that can easily take 3 to 4 years. And then the making of the film is going to take 2 years, 20 months to 2 years.
What's the most stressful part then of all that?
I think it's the financing and the closing of that financing. Like that's what I find the most stressful anyway, because, oftentimes you can get the first steps of that or get a X amount in, and then your co-producing partners are working hard on that side as well with their funding and their available funds, and then trying to knit all that jigsaw together so that it works in a certain timeline for everybody, and you're not going to drop any balls for your partners in terms of them losing money because you're not ready to start. So it's that whole kind of coordination of the financing takes a lot of time and a lot of strategic planning in order to pull it together at the time you need to pull it together. So that can be quite stressful.
Yeah.
I think obviously in the production phase, there's another kind of stress that happens because that's just constantly then you've done your development, you've done all the thinking, you've now got to execute it, and you have to do, X amount per week in animation in order to keep everybody and everybody in the co-producing structure fed in the pipeline. If there are any delays that come along there, it has a kind of exponential effect on everybody. So you don't want to impact others.
Co-production, as great as it is, where you're bringing in finance from other countries, it's also very difficult because, you're dealing with different cultures and different ways of doing things, but you don't, well, certainly when you're starting off, you don't know these people for a long time. You haven't grown up with them. It's hard. Like we did a European co-production before with 5 other countries from mainland Europe.
So you know what it's like.
And it's like 4 of them were amazing. One of them was really that's why I left the industry for a number of years, because it was such a horrible experience. You can meet a lot of bad apples out there as well. And how do you proof that?
You can, and it can really burn you, on financially and in every other way. Like, I can understand why you might have been put off. You know? It's a very good question. I don't think there's any guarantees ever, but it's very important when you're building those relationships and when you're nurturing those relationships as you meet people in the marketplace, to spend time with them, hang out with them a little, see how they behave, see how they treat others.
Yeah.
And also, if you're moving towards what you feel is going to be a commitment for a few years, certainly ask other people about them. Yeah. I mean, some people find that a little weird when you say that, but I think it's natural and healthy. You would do it about any other major decision in your life. And it is a major decision because if you're going to make a film or a TV series, you're with those partners for several years, in fact, especially in animation. But even with live action, it's quite a commitment. And even after you've finished, there's still ongoing business to do. The distribution, working with distribution partners, following the track of something. So you need those people to be still committed to following up on things with you.
Yeah.
It's a very tricky managing of people experiment, if you like, and it's a bit crazy, to some extent. But that's all you can do, your due diligence on those people.
Yeah, I think definitely the asking around is a great idea because these particular producers, we had partied with them in Cannes and Berlin. These were the 2 that we always hung out with. They were the most sociable.
Okay.
But I discovered then during the production that definitely the stress of deadlines and when money comes into play can very much change people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It can. And even, well-meaning good people, they don't have to be bad people to not be able to manage that or to be able to deal with it sensibly in a way that they understand it's going to impact Garry.
Yeah.
Or have that sense of responsibility or ethics in their business where they go, well, if we do that, then it's going to hurt Garry's business. Like there has to be a kind of a family thinking.
Yeah.
But it's hard to just get, you really have to find it, and you can be unlucky.
And were you ever burned
Not by a co-production partner in that sense. I mean, we did have difficult ones. We had things where, I guess, just, balls being dropped kind of and having to pick up the slack for others, and that's why I mentioned the word family, because it becomes like that, almost that you have to kind of absorb some of that. And we've had things fall through on us, certainly, but, it hadn't gone so far. So, we've been lucky as well. But I think I know many people in the business who have really suffered, actually. What I like about, after some years of experience, and you'll know yourself how important it is to be present and going to the markets, is that people learn about you, even though you're seeing them, 3-4 times a year. They do kind of check in and out with you. They're watching you.
Yeah.
They're noticing your other relationships with people. They'll find out fairly soon if you're on the good side or the bad side of things.
Okay, yeah.
After that, as I say, you can just get unlucky, maybe. But, I've had several people over the years come to me and ask me about other people.
Okay.
And there are a few times where I have actively gone to others and said, don't work with them. And I hate doing that. But if it's someone I trust and admire and respect in the industry, I don't want them to get hurt.
Yeah,
so a bit of that goes on as well.
Brilliant. How long then is Moetion Films in existence?
Moetion Films, I founded in October 2013.
Okay, very good. It's the same year that I set up GK Media Studios.
We're in our 13th year. I hope it's a lucky one.
Yeah, lucky 13.
Before that, I worked with Magma Films for years, and that's actually in the process in there somewhere I got involved in animation, because I went from radio, just to turn back to that point, where I met Justin and got in working in documentaries with him, actually.
Yeah.
He was the one who pulled me out of that into documentary making, and I worked in live action for a while. So I kind of learned my trade in that sense there with those experiences. But Magma started doing animation in co-production, and I wanted to go in there. I could see it had a lot of the things I liked, especially the voice and the actors.
This with Ralph Christensen.
That was with Ralph, yeah. So he founded that company. I'm not sure when he founded that company right now, but I came into it maybe 3 or 4 years or 5 years into its existence. And Magma was very successful for years.
Yeah.
We did a lot of co-productions, especially with Europe.
And
also
he was
Canada.
of German origin, so there was a lot of German co-productions as well.
Yeah, because his network was German. So he was bringing that, I guess, knowledge into the company.
And what did...
But Magma fell on hard times too, and we all lost our jobs there. So in that sense, yeah, there was experience learning there as well, even in bad times.
Yeah. So just bring it back a little bit. When you went in, so you were doing radio and you were loving the experience of that and the craft of the voice and so on. Because even I remember working in radio myself, like Bernadette Prendergast, who's head of news, used to say, the voice and the words we use, we have to visualize everything for the listener. It's not like they get to see it. We have to bring it to life in the words we write and the way we say it. And I thought that was a great lesson. But so that you went from there into Telegale, working in documentaries and editing with Justin and so on. Then Magma. What were you going into Magma? What was the grab? What did you want to create Moe Honan into?
Oh, at that point, I probably was more looking towards expanding my directing skills, because I was already voice directing. I was directing stuff that was in post-production. I had been on set a lot. So I fancied that.
And there wasn't...
But there wasn't a
lot of female directors then either, was there?
No, and there wasn't an obvious pathway for me to do it, to be honest, at that point. But I kind of learned, I guess, then, looking at how the whole business was run, attending markets and figuring out things that... And people often ask me that question, why did I become a producer? I think I came to the conclusion that someone has to do it. It's like someone has to do that bit.
Yeah.
And if you want to make something happen, in fact, you're going to have to do that bit. Because you can't just make it happen and be one of the other roles.
True.
You have to get at the legal and financing and responsibility part of the fulcrum of what makes it all work. That's not to say that I wasn't open to doing that, but it wasn't my first thought about what I enjoy doing. So I think I've come at it from, I suppose, broadly speaking, what they call the creative side, and brought that into how I produce, which we do speak these days about creative producers as well, because I'm very much involved in the development and the creative side. But obviously I have to deal with the money.
Yeah, because you go and set up a production company having seen a very successful production company go under.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm sure there's things you would have seen working in there will say, well, when I set up my own one, I'm not going to do this, or I will do this, whatever. Yeah. But why did you bridge to that rather than saying, okay, I'm going to start knocking on doors and seeing are there gigs in other production companies?
That's a really good question, Garry. Now we're in the psychology chair, I think. There is a little bit of masochism in it. Like, yeah, it's like, you know, I didn't actually think about going and getting a job with another company. I had some things I needed to finish during that time after the company closed and I lost my job. I had projects that I already had in development with people. So I think I felt I have to honor this. I have to finish this route. If I can get some of this further, I'll take it further. If I can't, I'll rethink what I'm doing. And actually what happened during that time then is I suppose, knitted stuff together somehow for about a year or so. And then I thought, okay, it's time to jump in the deep end now and actually call myself what I'm doing.
Yeah, brilliant.
And say, you know, have my own entity and build things up from there.
So when I started off my first production company, it was in 2001, and we were focusing solely on doing short films, documentaries, and feature films. But cash flow wise, it was extremely difficult. And we came to a decision, thankfully I was still living at home, where it's like, I can't do this anymore. I need to, hence why I moved to radio then.
Right.
And then when I set up GK Media Studios in 2013, I said, okay, I need to have a strong commercial arm here so I can finance the day-to-day cash flow of business, whilst trying to build a portfolio where we can do our shorts and our docs and our feature films. How were you able to cash flow Moetion Films starting out?
In the beginning, I guess I was dealing with a small amount of development money for the projects. And then I was also working, doing service work as a voice director. So that helped me to just bring a little bit of cash flow into the company and then build up other services. We did bits and pieces of scripting services for people, script editing, bits of production. Now, I always thought, though, because I could see it happening around me as well, that I didn't want to become a full service studio.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that at all. It's a great thing to do. But I didn't want that big studio thing to run. I wanted to stay in IP, intellectual property development, get our own projects going. So I always kind of just took it to a certain amount of service. And I also, I suppose, was starting with a lean, small company. And that was one of the lessons I learned, as you alluded to, from, you know, all the good things that happened in Magma. But that was what I learned there. I thought, okay, you know, try to keep a lean overhead. Start small, keep it lean. If you get a project running, you can grow the crew and grow what you need to make the project happen. And I think that's what I've continued to do.
It's brilliant, because when I finished up in the production company, worked in radio, it took a long time to get back into the industry again, because people would say to me, how's the radio? I thought you were working in radio. I kind of changed my brand and I was trying to reintroduce the old brand or the new brand back in. And it took a long time to get that transition clear for people, where it's great what you did because you stayed within the industry all the way through and built up your connections. And
and I guess it wasn't an easy road. I won't say that it was, you know. There was a lot of bumps along the way. There was times when there was very little to go on. But I think I was lucky too that I had, as I say, some projects in development that I believed in and that I knew, you know, if I kept at it, I could make work, you know, and that's what happened, you know. That our first feature was the 2x2, Oops, the Ark Has Gone. And that was something that I had worked on for years and actually had worked on initially inside Magma.
Okay.
Yeah, so I brought that project with me and bought out the rights to it. So I had a commitment to that project.
Brilliant.
I needed to make it work.
And then it had a sequel as well, didn't it? 2 by 2?
Then we did the sequel.
Yeah.
And that was in 2015.
Okay.
Sorry, sequel was 20.
Yeah.
COVID film.
Okay.
So we'll go back to that in a second. But the first one was 2015. And the second one, 2 by 2 Overboard, was 2020. Released in some countries in 21. But because it was released in 20 initially, we fell into that lockdown clash where the UK opened up. We had a UK distributor. They wanted to go for it. We were in lockdown in Ireland. We couldn't release. 2 weeks later, they had to close the cinemas in London. We opened up. And then 2 weeks later, we closed down. So it had got about a month between 2 weeks in the UK and 2 weeks in Ireland, in the UK-Irish territory. And that was very disappointing for us because it went to number 1 actually in the UK in those 2 weeks. So if it had longer to run, it could have done really well for us, And getting something in that theatrical space to work is so important for a film because, if it goes straight to streamers, that can really just mean it's lost because that space doesn't generally promote or market to an audience.
Yeah, I was having a conversation recently with someone and they were saying that streamers are just not supporting the animation industry at all.
At the moment, that is the case, yeah. Unfortunately, in the beginning of the streamer cycle, let's say, I guess it was a little bit unrealistic maybe looking back on it, but I think for the TV and film industry, they came on like a complete disruptor, right, of the way everything was going to be handled and managed, and the distribution model. They broke it. In the heady days of that, they were throwing money into things because they wanted to accumulate content.
Yeah.
And build up their content because they had their viewers by subscription, right? So they just needed to feed that machine.
Yeah.
And I think in that phase, they were pumping in money to stuff. And now they have their subscribers. They, of course, still need content, but they're acquiring it more rather than commissioning.
Yeah, because I can see
they've pretty much pulled out of animation as things stand at the moment.
But with Netflix, there's a huge amount of content coming out now that's murder mystery. You have the Knives movies, you have these documentaries, you have the Agatha Christie stuff. There was some UK productions there that took place recently over the last few years. I can't remember the names of them, but there's and I can see from Netflix point of view, they're like, okay, there's an appetite for this, so let's get stuff in production straight away. Whereas with animation, it could take 4 to God knows how many years. So they can't have that quick turnaround. So that's probably why they are being so, distant from getting involved in animation. But then where does animation get to sit?
I think you're right. I think that's part of the conundrum there for animation. But I think it's also true that they figured out that it's adults who pay the subscription.
Yeah.
So they're feeding the adults.
Yeah.
And actually, obviously their animation is also made for adults, and there's that market is a niche still, but it's growing. There's a little bit more taste for it in certain types of animation, which is quite an interesting space now, actually. But in the general sense, animation is primarily still, in the industry sense, it's primarily still produced for family audiences and kids. And the streamers don't have any public policy remit to children.
No.
I know we live in an era now where public broadcasting gets quite a bashing, politically. It's you can see what happened there in the UK with those conversations. We hear about it regularly that, they almost sold Channel 4 in the last government in the UK. Our own public broadcaster has had its bumps and scandals in the last couple of years. And in that storytelling frenzy of that, there's a kind of an aggro built up against the public broadcaster. But on the other hand, the public broadcaster actually has a remit to provide X amount of content for a diversity of its demographic and a diversity of people. And without that responsibility, if the only responsibility is the net profit, then those things fall away.
Yeah.
It's important for us to remember that. I'm on my political rant now.
No,
but it is important
absolutely.
just to remember, because it affects how we bring up our children and what we expose them to, and if we want them to have content that is made in Europe even and get access to that, or do we just let them see something that's coming from somewhere else all the time?
Mm-hmm.
They are then the future viewers of what? Are they going to look at public broadcasting? Where are they going to get their information? What's going to inform their decision making around, political adult concerns? And that's into a democracy conversation, so you can see how important it is. So while it needs to answer questions and do better, I think we need to support public broadcasters. It's very important for us to retain them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny, there's other streaming platforms out there that might be more dedicated to children.
Yes, of course.
But again, my kids don't watch them at all. And I have an 8-year-old and 12-year-old. And ironically, the 8-year-old still has her Niko teddy bear in her bed every night.
Yeah.
But they're not fulfilled by the content that this platform brings out, even though it would be brand. And we would have been growing up watching content from this brand as kids over the years. And I suppose the other threat there, and we had a brief chat about it outside before we started recording, was AI. And I often find that there's conversations, I go to conferences and they're talking about AI, but no one really knows where AI is going. It's all guesswork and stuff like that. But you're in the field, you're on the ground working all the time.
Yeah.
Do you see it as a benefit, or do you see it as something that can actually be quite dangerous to the industry?
Both, really, which is why I think we need to keep our attention on it. We need to not reject it completely, because it's an innovation and it's a disruptor, and all these things need to be somehow integrated, right? But we are watching it from a ethical point of view in relation to people, and also legally, the biggest question any producer will bring up is copyright, because it feels uncertain in that space. We have to have ownership of rights in order to make something, in order to sell something. So if we can't 100% say that we own it, we're not on solid ground.
So if you are developing even a pitch and you put maybe data into an AI machine to say, help me write the logliner, or here's the script, now turn that into a synopsis, is that the copyright then already?
Personally, on a personal level, I feel uncertain about that, because I feel that whatever comes back to me is pulling on whatever those AI, generative AI, we should differentiate actually between generative AI and AI tools that might help people work more efficiently in some way.
Yeah.
And I do think they are, one is attractive in how it can help people be more efficient. And the other, the generative side, where we're literally asking to invent our stories or invent our visuals for us, is not something at the moment I'm happy to use, because I feel it's going to give me something anyway that it's pulled off the internet that is already copyrighted, in fact.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be able to show me where it's got it from. It's not going to fess up.
Yeah.
And I don't know who owned it. But I also feel, just on an ethical level, personally, I feel that's not right. I also don't think that it's enjoyable ultimately still. I don't think people will gravitate towards AI storytelling, even if it gets really good.
But there's always that lazy element in us humans where, if we can do something faster and quicker,
and that will seduce a lot of people. I do think there will be problems there, undoubtedly. I'm hopeful that if we do it in a balanced way and use AI in the way it should help us as humans, that we can in time discern. But I think right now we're in quite a dangerous place where the legals aren't quite matching my hope, because they're quite vague. I mean, Europe is the only continent actually that's started to try to put some legal framework around this whole subject. But we're working in a global industry. Yeah. So it's going to be really hard, and hard choices will have to be made. But so far, I think we will definitely keep an eye on it, and certainly look at some AI training for within a company or when we're doing projects that's going to help us use tools, but not actually to generate our story and to generate the human aspect of what we want to do there in telling a story and reaching an audience.
And what do you think is missing in storytelling these days?
You mean human storytelling or AI storytelling?
Human story, yeah.
What do I think is missing? I still find good stories that bring me in. I don't think there's stuff missing in that sense, but in the cinema world, I mean, we touched on it when we spoke earlier, but I have also completely no interest now in watching extended, huge IPs being regurgitated or have massive, effects-led movies. They've never attracted me, to be honest, but I really can't take it anymore, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So for me, I like the storytelling that's going to pull me in the character, watching what happens to a character. The more complex the character, great.
Yeah.
But I do think that that's universal, and I think it's everlasting. It's just that it's not that common at the moment. You have to go and find it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I was thinking also recently about something in this topic of conversation we're having. I suddenly remembered it, and it was something I learned about when I was a teenager, inside in the old abbey, actually, in Anna St. Clair. And we were studying, the stonework and the artwork there. And I was reminded of the fact that those arts and crafts people and stonemasons and all those artists of the time, they would always leave a piece that was asymmetrical or imperfect. Because the thinking was that you couldn't make something perfect, because to do so would be blasphemous, actually, in that time. It would have been saying that you were as perfect as the divine or as perfect as God, or trying to be a higher thing than a human. And it came back to me just lately as a thought, because I thought, well, we're sort of deferring now as humans in our minds at the moment to AI, almost like it's a god. It's going to be higher than us. It's going to be more intelligent than us. It's going to be telling us what to do and how to think, almost. And is it the imperfection of humanity? Is it the imperfection or the crack in something that is going to be what we still want? Brilliant. Because we can't be perfect.
Brilliant. I love it.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, can you just talk to me then about where the industry is now? So, what are you working on at the moment? Let's take it back a second. When you finished Niko and the Magic Reindeer, did you take like a 6-month break for yourself and go to Hawaii or something? Or is it kind of right onto the next project now? Like, do you have to keep staying busy, or can you just enjoy nice long periods of just chilling?
You have to keep working, because first of all, a movie like that, when it does well in the box office, and we really like to see that, because it's effectively successful as a promotion for the film. By the time everybody's getting back their bits and pieces of financing, the distributors, the sub-distributors, the cinemas, it's not like it's a huge amount for the companies who make the film being open, but still, if you're lucky and you make enough internationally, you can bring something back in, and then you're going to use that to reseed something else, to help you kickstart or develop something else. So you have to keep working. You can't just say, okay, that's it for a while now. No, certainly not. And we have...
That was the dream.
That is the dream, yeah. But it's, I mean, you might have a day where you can rest in the glory of something, but generally we're always planning ahead. Like we have a development slate. We've 3 features on that. We've 2 series on it. We're pushing them at various markets and in terms of what we're doing. So it will be probably, hopefully, whatever jumps first there. The industry is tough at the moment. It's very tough in animation, I think, partly because of what we've just been talking about, actually. And public broadcaster money is getting squeezed as well. So we have to find new ways, I think, to make things, to finance, to be more agile around it. And I think people are also looking at trying to make more out of things they have spent years working on. trying to extend how they can use the content they create into something smaller, something else, or another iteration of it, rather than starting at base camp all the time.
Yeah.
So there will be ways people have to innovate, I think, around that. But I'm still hopeful that, these things go in cycles. We're going through a tough period right now, but, we've come down from something heady.
Yeah.
So maybe you could argue it's kind of steadying into something more normal. But obviously we need to find new ways to reach audiences. Audiences are getting more and more fragmented. Everything's getting specialized and segmented.
Yes.
And I think that's affecting accessibility as well and awareness. It's getting more and more competitive to try and be seen and noticed. So the marketing side and promotion side of industry is going to get bigger and bigger, I think. And that's something that we need our funders' eyes on as well, because very often, traditionally, that was with a distributor.
That's right, yeah.
The producer focused entirely on making the thing. But now we need to get the marketing and the promotion thing starting much, much earlier, which means that we need some funding for that in order to, get attention on it from a much earlier point. And very often in the traditional models of financing for development and producing, marketing is not an allowable budget line or an eligible spend in a tax credit, for instance. There are things we need to do there policy-wise to try and match what the reality of making something is now.
Because it's always been a pet peeve for me working in content, but also marketing, because we would do EPKs for people. And some producers out there get the importance of marketing, and other people they'll spend everything and then they'll just, I explained to them before, it's like having a company who spends all their budget on making this product and then just expect people to know about it and to go into the shop and buy it. It doesn't work that way. And especially now, before, everything went out to the cinema, and it was a case of, shout a little bit and people will watch it when they walk into the cinema. They'll say, oh, actually, I heard about that. I'll pick that movie tonight and get a ticket for it. Whereas now you're competing with the giants being the streamers, and people are comfy and they don't want to get off their couch at night and head into town to watch something in a cinema and so on. So really you need to shout long and hard to get people off their butt to go in and watch something in a cinema.
Yes, for sure.
And I think, the issues is with the finances. Definitely there needs to be that conversation with the government for the tax, relief, but also just the importance of going all the way in getting your production known about and seen.
Yeah. And I think it's because, as I said, the thinking and the mindset and the financing models that shaped that, when you say the producers didn't think about it, obviously their entire energy has gone into making the thing, and their budget is built around those budget lines. They would not have had a budget line for marketing and sales. So we need to shift that for sure. And work still in collaboration with our sales agents and our distributors from an earlier point. But they don't have the money to throw at it either, Whereas traditionally they might have invested much more. So I think we just need to look at that and see, how can we do effective marketing together earlier? Let's talk about it earlier. And let's make a map for it.
But the disappointment for you with Overboard is that not enough people got to see it. It went to number one.
Yeah.
But the thing that really hurts is that people didn't get to see it, isn't it?
That's the bit that hurts, yeah.
Yeah. It's the thing that
exactly
people,
it. And then when it goes into streamers, it went in too early. So it didn't get its promotional theatrical spin, right?
Yeah.
So then it goes into streamers. And obviously people who might have been aware of the IP through the first film might have found it and gone, oh, there's another one. But it's not going to be promoted at you by whatever platforms the films are on. They're going to promote their own co-productions.
Yeah.
And their own commissioned work. They're not going to start pumping P&A, as we used to call it, money into an independent acquisition. So it can literally just go into the ocean. And that's disappointing. You're right. It's not really even though it's important for the industry that there's some profit to pump into companies, but there's a huge disappointment in not reaching an audience, that will love it.
Finally, who can we get involved to solve some of these issues? Is everything really on Screen Ireland, or?
Screen Ireland have a lot to lift, and I know from talking to them that that's increasing for them. Their remit is getting broader with all the different kinds of ways of storytelling that we have now. They started off completely in film, then they have TV, they have games, they have immersive, they've etc., etc., etc. So all these things are certainly a heavy load. Moetion Films are really very effective in that space as well. And our tax credit is one of the best in Europe, right? So we are really lucky in Ireland. We have a lot that we can draw on. It's still not enough. So all we can say is that we always need to have that conversation going with our policymakers, our politicians, our funders. We can never take our foot off the gas on that, and also keep reviewing it because of the kind of changes that we've been talking about, where actually maybe the way we've been doing it is just not working. And maybe that rule, 3.2A5 in the legislation there is not fit for purpose. Yeah. Maybe we just need to loosen up rules around how we spend something. Or if we dedicated to doing a marketing teaser, last year for a movie we're planning to do in 3 years' time, maybe that's okay and maybe it's an allowable spend.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to constantly shake it up and keep those conversations going. And I'm the voluntary chair of Animation Ireland as well. So
brilliant.
I do work a lot on that stuff with the board and try and help our members. And I know those organisations like SPY as well, they're always working very hard with the agencies and with government to keep everybody briefed and keep looking at, obviously the opportunities, but the challenges people are meeting as well. So I think staying active and attentive to that stuff is really important, and helping in that area is really important for people, on committees. Yeah. Just to...
Yeah, and it is that frustration as well, where you feel you're getting through to, we'll say, the government, and they're turning up at events and they're saying, a minister's saying, definitely I agree with you and we'll do this and we'll do that. And then the budget comes out and you realise half of those promises were never fulfilled. And it clearly, in terms of even support in the western region of Ireland, it hasn't been happening to the level that's expected.
No. And, it's a constant topic for us. We haven't let it go. There have been some other positive changes that have come down the line that we've been working on, both in terms of Section 481 tax relief and increased funding in other areas. But that one that is connected to what we perceive as regional is still a difficult one, I think, politically, for government to make work in such a way that it will do what it's intended to do, and that it's also going to be something that is compliant with European legislation. There are some things to unpick there, but I think from the government's perspective, they are still very willing and open to making something work. I don't think that they've forgotten about it, and we're not going to let them forget about it.
That's for sure. Okay, my final question, because I've said final about 4 times now, is if someone is listening to this podcast or watching it and they say, I'd love to become a director or a producer of animation, what advice would you give them?
Okay, so my first advice is read, watch movies, watch content, get kind of script and visually educated. Look at stuff you don't think you might like. Compare. I think at the business end of it, go to the markets. It's the biggest learning thing you'll do in your life. Go to the markets. If it's animation in particular, obviously that is Annecy in June in France.
Okay.
And then there are 2 that are focused in a European way from an organisation called Cartoon Movie, which is coming up in March for feature films, and Cartoon Forum, which is TV, which is in September. Both take place in France. France got all the money, okay. And then outside of that, again, of course, globally, there are lots of markets beyond that. But Irish industry tends to look at markets like Kidscreen in the US, which I believe is moving back to where it was for years in Miami. It's been in San Diego in the last couple of years and maybe not working so well there for just travel and industry reasons. So that may be in Miami next year again, but keep an eye on that if you're that way focused. And there are others. There's, animation in the UK have their own events as well. And I think if you spend a bit of time attending those just to learn how things work and try and meet people and watch what's happening.
Even if you don't have an idea, just go to the talks that are on.
Go anyway, because you will learn how people pitch stuff. You will see people's materials and kind of what level things are at, which can vary a lot. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
You can go in early, in some cases within concept stuff to some festivals and markets, and you learn, as I say, who's doing what, and there's a huge diversity of people as well working in animation, from all kinds, like technical, artistic, business. It's a huge collaboration, so it's really good to get your head around all of that.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a million for joining me on today's show.
Very lovely, yeah.
Continued success.
Thank you very much, and to you too.
Thanks. Garry Talks Film, kindly supported by Grace on Demand Skillnet and the Rap Commission.